Welcome to the Moses Lake Migrant Safeschools training. In the Moses Lake School District, we currently have over 400 students who qualify for migrant services. So, if you have ever wondered what that little M in Skyward means, we are now going to have the opportunity to learn a little bit about what it is like to be our students.
We like to think of agriculture as good, clean, outside work, something healthy and wholesome and outdoors, and kids working for their families' farms and helping out when they can. The reality is today, farm work is something completely different.
I started working when I was 11 years old.
It feels like you don't got no choices. You don't feel the same as other kids.
There are hundreds of thousands of children working on U.S. farms, and many kids who are working on large commercial farms. The child labor law in the US is pretty good, except when it comes to agriculture. And then it has a big gaping hole. US law allows children to work in agriculture at far younger ages for unlimited hours outside of school in much more dangerous conditions than any other sector. So a child can work perfectly legally for any farmer at age 12. That child couldn't work serving the food, that he can work 10, 12, 14 hours picking. Farm work is actually the most dangerous occupation that's open to kids in the US in terms of fatalities. Kids are working with dangerous and sharp tools, doing work that may require them to be bent down for hours. I've talked to kids who've worked in 14 states around the US, and kids told me about the toll that this work takes on their bodies.
The airplane flew over the field and began spraying on the field, and I didn't know what the spray contained or what it was. The drift was coming towards our field because it was windy, and I'm thinking, oh, it's just water. They're making the crops grow better.
Now, pesticide exposure isn't good for any farm workers, but it's especially bad for children whose bodies are still developing. Farm worker families are typically very, very poor. And kids told me that they worked in order to put food on the table or to fix the family's truck or to pay the phone bill. Kids are working because their families really need the money. When children work so many hours during school and over the summers, it really hurts their education. Kids who migrate leave school early and go back to school late, missing weeks or months of school every year. These kids are from Texas, where school started 3 days ago. Now, some of these kids will enroll in Michigan schools when those start up in a couple of weeks. Others will just wait till they get back down to Texas.
It was hard to catch up in school. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for me because sometimes I'll be there in class and my friends know everything I didn't know. And it was hard, and sometimes I feel like embarrassed because I never catch up with them.
Kids are also working because it's legal. US law presents it as a legitimate choice for families to send their kids out to work, and employers are free to hire them. Do they pay each person?
Yeah, they pay us each person.
Yeah, so even like your 12-year-old daughter is going to make.
They pay her. Yeah, they pay her. Like she's 12, so he probably won't make the check under her name because she doesn't have any ID or anything to cash the check. So that he'll just probably put it in my check.
The Fair Labor Standards Act is U.S. federal law that, among other things, prohibits child labor. But when the law was passed, a big exception was left for agriculture. In 1938, a lot of Americans lived on family farms, and far fewer Americans graduated from high school or needed a high school diploma. Today, the picture is different, but the loophole remains.
It's not right that these kids, and including me, that I lost my childhood, and other children should lose their childhood as well.
When I turned 14, that's when I dropped out from school. and went to the strawberries in Florida. And then we came back to Ohio and started working on the pickles, harvesting. But it really hasn't been easy.
Right now, there's a bill pending in Congress called the CARE Act. And it's a bill that would amend the Fair Labor Standards Act to apply the same rules to kids working in agriculture as kids working in any other sector. A lot of people walked beans or detasseled corn or did other kinds of farm work when they were teenagers. But the CARE bill is about protecting the most vulnerable kids. Not kids who are doing chores, but young kids who are working for such long hours and compromising their health and their education.
Here in Moses Lake and in Washington in particular, sorry, the other way around, here in Moses Lake, we have 7 areas of concern for our migrant students and their families. Some of them we have control over, others we do not. The first area of concern is educational continuity. When students move from school to school, district to district, and state to state, they encounter different expectations, different curriculums, and different requirements. These transitions and learning new systems take time, and our students frequently find themselves behind academically and credit deficient at the secondary level. The second area of concern is instructional time. The decrease in time that students spend engaged in learning frequently leads to lower levels of academic achievement and gaps in knowledge due to missed content. The third area of concern is educational support in the home. Our migrant families value education and want a different life for their children, but frequently they do not know how to support their children in a manner consistent with school expectations. Our fourth area of concern is health. Migrant families are at higher risk of chronic and acute illnesses due to pesticides exposure, farm injuries, and heat-related illnesses. The fifth area is English language development. Language pedagogy and philosophies frequently change between schools, districts, and states, and many of our migrant students qualify for service in the English language development program. The Moses Lake School District currently has 22 certified teachers dedicated to providing 30 minutes of designated English language development to children who qualify. But 30 minutes is just 30 minutes of a 6.5-hour day. All of our teachers are working hard to use strategies that will allow multilingual students access to the core curriculum, no matter their language levels. The sixth area of concern is access to services. In our migrant program, in order to help our families find their footing in Moses Lake, our district provides the following services to migrant children and their families. Supplemental academic programs to assist in the achievement of state academic standards, health programs through our district, Moses Lake Community Health, and the Grant County Health Department, family home visiting and academic counseling services, parental involvement through the Parent Advisory Council, which meets 3 times annually to gather input from parents and educate families about how our programs can assist their children. We collect migrant student data in order that when students move from district to district, that information will follow them. We provide student leadership opportunities, summer school programs such as Dare to Dream, and access to local programs for credit retrieval. We have secondary credit accrual and exchange. And additionally, our grant provides supplemental services for dropout prevention and retrieval and alternative education programs. One of the biggest jobs of our migrant program is to disseminate information from our program through mailings, phone calls, emails, and social media. In the 2021-22 school year, our district provided QPR suicide prevention training in Spanish to migrant families, evening ESL classes for parents, migrant children vision screening and glasses, physicals for children, and we partnered with the Latino Civic Alliance to provide community health fair in which our students and their families were able to access COVID vaccinations, COVID tests, and education on community resources through the Grant County Health District and Moses Lake Community Health. The seventh area of concern is school engagement, and this is the one where you can have the biggest impact. This is the single largest area of concern that we all have control over. Research shows that feeling a part of the school community is an important protective factor and predictor of school success. Each of us, no matter our role, plays an integral part in how students feel when they ride the bus, when they enter a classroom, when they get their lunch, when they play at recess, and when they're learning throughout the day. We each, every one of us, has control over how we welcome all of our students into our school community. Who exactly are our migrant students? Our migrant students are between the ages of 3 and 21 years of age, and they have been identified with a qualifying move from one school district to another within the last 36 months in order to obtain qualifying work, which is temporary or seasonal employment in agriculture, forestry, or fishing works. In Washington state, we have the second largest migrant population in the United States. And right now in the Moses Lake School District, we have over 400 qualified students in our migrant program. This graphic shows a few things that are happening in Washington state. Ag production topped $10.6 billion, food processing $20.1 billion, and Washington is the number one producer of aquaculture in the country. Additionally, Washington farms and farmers produce over 300 different commodities, many of which are reliant on our migrant workers. We do not have time today to watch this video, Every Row a Path. However, we do have access to it in its entirety. It's about 30 minutes. If you would like to watch this video, it's actually filmed in Washington in the Skagit Valley and highlights the lives of Washington migrant students. If you would like to watch it, please email Karen Schatzko at mlsd161.org. Thank you so much for attending our Migrant Safe Schools training. If you have any questions or think that you may have a student who should qualify for migrant services, please don't hesitate to contact any of the migrant staff below. Thank you and have a wonderful school year. Enjoy all of our students.